Hello. So we've had a look at a scientific inquiry and we've also had a look at a historical inquiry. But as you'll know from your timetable, there are many more subjects to go. So what about the rest of them? Well, today we're going to cover quite a lot because we're going to have a multidisciplinary inquiry. First of all, I better talk a little bit about what we mean by discipline. Now at school, you have subjects. Many of your subjects are a study of a discipline. The meaning of the word discipline is actually a little bit fuzzy, so no wonder we went for subjects instead. Broadly speaking, a discipline is a branch of knowledge, an area of scholarship in which scholars like scientists or historians or geographers are all looking at a particular kind of question. But after that, it gets a bit trickier. Because sometimes we call science a discipline and we say that the scholars there are scientists, but sometimes we talk about physics as a discipline, indeed chemistry as a discipline, and biology as a discipline, even though they are all inside science. And sometimes we talk about astronomy as a discipline, even though astronomy is a branch of knowledge inside physics. Thinking about it, maybe that's it. Maybe it is just branches of knowledge, and each branch divides into smaller branches and smaller branches, and eventually we get down to the twigs. Okay, so what about our multidisciplinary inquiry? We're going to use a tool to help us with this called the discipline wheel. Now, the discipline wheel is a pedagogical tool. It's a tool we use in school to help us to think about how disciplines work. The fun thing with the discipline wheel, now we've got it, is that we can put something in the middle and then we can investigate that something through each of the lenses of those different disciplines. I'm going to put an object in the middle, but you can put a question in the middle. And the object I'm going to put in the middle is an orange. Here it is. I find oranges completely fascinating as a scientist. I like their texture. I like the idea that the skin is kind of waxy and that each of the parts of the orange has a function. If we slice the orange open, we can see even more of its structure inside and think about what each of those little components are about and what they're for. So that's looking at our orange through the lens of science. But science isn't the only discipline that we could use to study an orange. What about if we went to the historians? What could the historians tell us about an orange? Well, of course, they would be interested in studying the orange through history, therefore in the past. And as it happens, I happen to know that oranges played quite an important role in the past. And I suggest, if you don't know, you could have a look, or indeed would make a great investigation for you to do with your student. Investigate what do we know about oranges by investigating them through history. Are there any other disciplines that could help us to know a little bit more about the orange? Well, what about geography? How could I understand my orange better through the lens of a geographer? What would a geographer tell me about an orange? Geography, of course, is the study of places. And so I would be able to discover more about my orange as a crop. Where is it grown? Haha, colour. I'm heading already into another discipline that can help me to think about an orange. It would be such fun, wouldn't it, to study the orange through the discipline of art. I could study it through my own art. I could create a picture of an orange and try and communicate through my picture what I find interesting and important and beautiful about an orange. And then I could also study art. So I could look at where oranges have featured in the work of the great painters throughout the centuries. What about religion? Could I also study the role of the orange through the lens of religion? I certainly could. I could not only think about this as a fruit and how worshipful I might feel about having oranges and other fruits on the earth, I could also think about how important it is to make sure that people everywhere on the planet have fresh fruit and food. And I could think about the inequality that's in the world at the moment and what I might be able to do to help. Any other disciplines that we'd want to use? So far we've had science, we've had history, we've had art, we've had religion, we've had geography. What about mathematics? Could I think about the orange mathematically? Well, I'll tell you what, here's something I can say about it mathematically. It might look round, but it's definitely not a perfect circle. Look at that. It's a real kind of dent over here. And not only that, but this way, it's sort of rounder than if I turn it this way, in which case it becomes really more of an oval shape. So there we go, I can definitely study my orange mathematically. I could also think about the volume of the orange and how much juice, therefore, there might be inside my orange. That sort of brings me full circle back to science, because if I'm thinking about juice, I'm thinking about nutrition again and health. And a lot of the questions that we explore in health and medicine are also related to nutrition, so informed by our scientific understanding. That brings me to the last point that I'm going to mention about working with multidisciplines, many disciplines. Not only can each of those disciplines give you another angle, another area of understanding on your object or question, they also interact in really interesting ways. What we find out in one discipline might inform our thinking in another discipline. Sometimes the disciplines kind of rub together with a little bit of kind of friction, and we might have two things that don't quite appear to make sense yet in this discipline and this discipline. And all we scholars, we love a puzzle, so that gives us something to try to work out. All right, well, you can absolutely guess the project that's coming up now. I would like you to think of a question or an object that you can put in a discipline wheel and come up with your own multidisciplinary inquiry.